So let's jump in. It's 2 minutes after 11. And Nat, if you just let people come on in. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name's Lorraine Williams. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Can everybody see me? Yeah? All right. My name's Lorraine Williams, and I am a facilitator, an executive coach, and a speaker with Vital Work. And I don't think I have to go into great detail about Vital Work because everybody on here is currently a client. So you all know who Vital Work is. And if you are on here and you're not a client and you're an imposter, welcome anyway. You are welcome. Big thank you to everybody who chose to join us today. I really do appreciate it. I know what time is of the essence. I know we're all busy and you picked us. So thank you for picking us and for spending this hour with us. It means a lot. A few things I'd like to go over so we can have a successful hour together. First of all, it is a 1 hour session. We're going to try and be off by 12 o'clock to respect your time. We will not be using breakout rooms today. So that might make some people happy and maybe others not so much. I don't know. But in the interest of time, I've chosen not to use breakout rooms. However, breakout rooms do serve a purpose. They allow us to get together in small groups and to have really intimate conversation. So I would like to really emphasize using the chat today, right? So if you wouldn't mind, when you've got a thought that comes to mind, floats to the surface, throw it in the chat, because the thing is, the wisdom is out there in the room, folks. It's not all here. And the more we share, the more we learn, right? So I call it exponential intelligence, exponential knowledge. So please use the chat. What else have I got for you? Phones, these ugly things that we have to have in life these days. Weapons of mass distraction, that's what I call them. So I know we have them. I know we need them. I would love you to put them on silence if you wouldn't mind and face down on your desk. I'll give you an even better tip. If you can, put them in a drawer. But I understand and I respect all of you. So do whatever you need to do to be comfortable, but they will vie for your mental attention. So let's not let them. I would really, really appreciate it. Again, it's a big ask that we turn our cameras on. And why am I asking you to turn your camera on? Well, when our cameras are on, we get better connection. And I mean like human connection, better energy, less distraction, more focused. However, if you cannot have your camera on, I'm not here to beat you up about it. So if you can have your camera on, I'd really appreciate it. If not, I get it. Next thing, I want you to look around at your desk and I want you to see if there's anything on your desk that could possibly be distracting you. And if there is, let's kind of shove it off to the sides because we don't want to be distracted if we can help it. Welcome to those who are still coming on. We've jumped into the intros, folks. Last thing, it's not really the last thing, but one of the other things that I think is going to help for a successful hour is I would love you to come off mute and join in the conversation. I love interaction and it's a big conversation. So it's not just me talking to you, we're sharing the wisdom and we're learning from everybody. So when you feel the need, just come off mute. But I do have one favor to ask you when you do that. If you would look at the bottom of your screen, on the Zoom screen, and there's a little icon down there called reactions. And when you're ready to come off mute, if you wouldn't mind clicking on raise hand. And the only reason I'm asking you to do that is it's not really asking permission, but what it's doing is you might not be on my screen. Your part of that gallery could be off my screen. And by you raising your hand, it puts you in the front of my gallery so I can see who wants to join the conversation, right? So I'll see the hand up. So come off mute. I'd love you to, love to hear from you, love to hear your voices, but try to raise your digital hand when you do it. Another thing I'd like to ask of you today is for you to be fully here. And what I mean by that is if you could take the responsibility of listening, really listening. and reflecting on what we go over. I know there's a lot of stuff here, and I know it's helpful. It's rich content. I want you to listen. I want you to really reflect on what we're talking about and engage. So again, engaging might mean coming off mute and getting into the activities, because there will be activities that we're going to be doing. All right, any questions so far? A lot of info. All right, then I'm going to invite you to do a arriving practice with me. So what is an arriving practice? Well, an arriving practice reminds us that we're here physically. I can see a lot of you, even those who are not on camera. I know you're here because I can see your name. So you're here physically, but I want us to take note of where we are mentally. And I'd love you to be here 100% mentally focused on the content, on everybody else, and on what we're talking about. So the arriving practice that I'd like to invite you into is one called permission slips. And it's exactly how it sounds. I want you to think about giving yourself permission to do something that's going to allow you to be fully present, right? So I'll give you a couple of examples, and then I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think about it and jot something down. So maybe before you jumped on this call this morning, somebody was already pulling at your coattails. Maybe somebody was pulling at you for information they need, and that's still here, still playing on your mind. Maybe you were in the middle of an email that you haven't finished yet and you're thinking about it. So let's give ourselves permission to kind of take that information right now, because really there's not much we can do about it, and put it on ice. Let's just put it over here, put it on ice. Maybe you're, I'll give you one other thought jogger. Maybe you're one of those people who really get into this. You're listening, you're paying attention, but you don't like coming off mute. Well, maybe you want to give yourself permission today to come off mute and let me know if there's something I've said that you don't quite understand, or if you've got a comment, or if you want to expound. So I think you get it, right? Do you get what I'm asking for here? Thumbs up. All right. So first things first, does everybody, where's mine? I'm looking for it. I put it down. Have something to write with. Yeah? And something to write on. So what I'd like you to do is take the next 60 seconds and just think about what I've said, and write down, or think about, reflect on what you're going to give yourself permission to do or not to do to be here fully focused with us for the next hour. All right, 60 seconds. If you want to come off camera, by the way, while you're writing these things, that is absolutely fine. And then you can come back on when you're finished. I'll be timing you. All right, 60 seconds, folks, starting from now. Thirty seconds left. And pause. All right, so that just gave you time to think about what you might want to do or not to do in order to be here fully focused and present. Anybody like to share what they gave themselves permission to do? Any brave souls? Just come off mute. No?
To not check my emails.
Not check your emails. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for that. Thank you for coming forward. Anybody else?
Disable my notifications.
I love it. Disable notifications. That's a good idea. Thank you, Salvo. That's a great idea. Disable notifications, because they will eat away at your mental. Don't let them. All right. I gave myself permission to, I have a Zoom call this afternoon at 3:30. I'm not hosting it, but I am volunteering. And I was thinking about it just before I jumped on here. So I'm taking it and I'm going to put it on ice, not thinking about it at all. And as I'm talking about volunteering, I'd like to introduce Natalie Johnson, who is on the call. Most of you know Natalie. She's my boss, and she's also the co-founder of Vital Work. But she's also extremely gracious because she volunteered today to be my technical hand. So thank you, Natalie. I just feel so much better having you here on the call. That's me, Lorraine Williams, facilitator, speaker, executive coach. And we are today going to be looking at courageous communication. That's what our session is all about today. And we're going to be looking at it by using the tool of empathy to avoid falling into traps. So real high level, what we can look forward to is why having a courageous communication is tough, and why we fall into these traps, why we fall into these traps that we think protect us, but they really don't. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at the traps. And then we're going to perhaps analyze what we can do to avoid falling into these traps with the use of an amazing skill. Now, when we do this class over a period of hours, we go over several skills. But I think one of the most important skills of all is empathy. So we're going to take a look at how empathy can help us navigate and traverse these traps that we tend to fall into. All right, yeah? And I'm going to start by asking you to dive right into an activity. And the activity is, I want you to think of a leader in your life that you consider to be impactful, right? An impactful communicator. Somebody who really communicates well when they're giving feedback. Think of somebody you know. I prefer it to be in the workplace because, well, if it's in the workplace, great. If you can't think of anybody in the workplace, just think of that person. And it could have been somebody you worked with 20 years ago, 10 years ago, somebody you work with right now. And when that person comes to mind, what I want you to think about is what traits, what are the characteristics or the attributes that that individual is demonstrating that makes you think and you recognize them as an impactful communicator? What traits and characteristics is it that they portray or demonstrate that makes you feel they are a really good communicator? And again, I want to give you right now, does everybody understand the question? Yeah? Good. Everybody's got a pen, something to write on. I'd like you to take 90 seconds and just make a list of attributes or traits that you feel that person demonstrates. And 90 seconds starting from right now. Okay, 30 seconds. And pause, please. All right, so again, sometimes it's going to feel like I'm not giving you enough time to do these activities, but the whole idea is it's thinking more so than writing. So what I'd like you to do next, what I'd like to invite you to do is to look at that list that you've made and perhaps choose the top 3, maybe 4 of the attributes and characteristics that speak to you and put them in the chat for me, please. Just everybody go to the chat and add your top 3 or 4 that this individual in your life displayed characteristics. All right, I'm not seeing anything in there yet. Okay, Matt says sincerity, active listening, and effortless to make them a really good listener, a good communicator, and to give good feedback. Honesty, compassion, directness, calm, assume positive intent, consistency, shows up all of the time, authenticity. Kendall, clear in the critique, clear as to be kind, remember, in the moment, not giving examples from months ago, curious, asking questions. Trish says active listening, clear, concise wording, sincerity. What else have I? Assume positive intent, Stacy. Consistency. I'm seeing a lot of honesty, compassionate, directness. A whole bunch of really good stuff in here. Active listening is one that keeps appearing. Friendly and direct. So yeah, just everybody take a look at the chat and see what other people are typing in there and what stands out to you and what stands out to everybody in order to show up as a good communicator and one that gives good feedback. So reading this information sends a message to me. I'm looking at this information. I asked you to think of the traits. You put them in the chat, and reading them sends a message. What message are you getting? Can I ask you, anybody who wants to come off mute, what is this telling you about having difficult conversations? What is this telling you? What message is coming up for you front and center? Anybody?
I'm sorry, I can't find the hand raise, but
That's
I
okay,
think,
Angela.
I think with all of these words, I just think of that it's, the person, you feel safe with that person. They built that trust with you.
Yes. So the person that you're trusting and who's demonstrating impact is somebody you feel safe around, somebody who you trust because they've built trust with you. Is that what I'm hearing, Angela?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming forward. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Well, what I'm getting from it, and there's many things we can get from this, but what I'm getting from this is, how to have courageous communications. You know how to have courageous communications because you know what it takes. You've just typed it in the chat, right? So you know what it takes to have a really good conversation and be direct and be impactful because you've just put that information in the chat. However, in a lot of cases, we're not terribly good at it. Would you agree? When it comes to the real, when it comes to pedal to the metal, sometimes we're not really good at it. Yeah? Blunt is the word I'm searching for. Friendly and direct, blunt is the word you're searching for. Okay, so Salvo, yes, right? But would you want a person to be blunt?
No, in fact, it hurts. But after 2 days, that was the best feedback I ever received. I think about it, and that was so hard to feel, to hear. But yeah, opened my mind after 2 days. I had to let it fade it out.
Wow.
But that was very powerful and it hit me.
Wow. So there's a lot I can unpack from that. That's beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard. Feedback's hard, especially when it's challenging. It's tough. But you know what else it is? And you've just said it. It's a gift. It's a gift, man. I mean, we owe it to our people to point out to them their blind spots. Because sometimes we all have blind spots and sometimes we just don't see them. So yes, it's hard. And sometimes we have to go away and lick our wounds, right? And it's not good. And then Whew, when that dust settles and we're able to kind of like come at it, we think, you know what, there might be some truth in that. And I resemble that, maybe, or part of it, right? So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's feedback is tough. So my question is, what blocks us from having these courageous communications? We know what it takes. We probably know what we need to demonstrate. We know we need to have them, but what blocks us? So we're going to take a look at some of the traps that we fall into. And again, I'm going to be asking you to keep your eye open, keep your eye on these traps that we tend to fall into at times. And just, again, make a mental note, or you can make a written one, it's up to you, as to which ones you might identify with more than others. Some of us will identify more in the softer behaviors. Some of us, of course, will identify more in the harder behaviors. And then there are those of us, of course, who will say, oh, I'm in both, right? But let's take a look. These are traps. These are the traps that we think are protecting us, yeah? So procrastinate or avoid. We know we have to have the hard conversation, but we put it off. We put it off because it's not easy. And we're waiting for that perfect time, right? And in most cases, that perfect time doesn't exist, right? Sometimes that perfect time just isn't out there. Maybe it is, but we're waiting for that perfect time. And then maybe we're not procrastinating. We go in and we decide to have the conversation, but we're sugarcoating it. Any sugarcoaters in the house here? Anybody who sugarcoats a lot? Yeah, okay, I'm getting a nod. I'm seeing nods. Yeah, we sugarcoat, and we are sugarcoating for different reasons. Maybe we don't want to hurt the person's feelings, but in a lot of times that coin has two sides to it. We don't want to hurt their feelings because it feels uncomfortable, right? So we sugarcoat, and that does nothing more than confuse the person. We bury the main point, which is something else that a lot of us are good at, and I'm myself included. We go off on these tangents, and we go around in circles and off on tangents, and the person's like, what the heck is she, why she brought me in here, right? We're doing nothing but confusing the issue. We apologize unnecessarily. Just apologize. We bring somebody in maybe to, it's a challenging conversation, and we find ourselves we find ourselves apologizing constantly. Well, I brought you in here and I'm really sorry, and yeah, I know this is not easy. And again, we are losing credibility. Our credibility is going down, and we are not making our point, and we're confusing individuals. We use filler words. That's the same sort of thing again. Well, yeah, I meant to, I'm sorry. Yeah, credibility dashed, confusing. We fail to prepare. Now, if we find ourselves on the softer side of these behaviors, and we all do some of this, I think, at some point, but if we find ourselves over here a lot, it's so important to take the next bullet into, to think about the next bullet, failure to prepare. It's so important to prepare. And if you find yourself staggering in a lot of cases, then make a few bullet points. Know what you're going to talk about. When you get nervous and flustered, you can go back to your bullet points, prepare, right? What else have we got? Tone. Softer behaviors, our tone could be one of anxiety, lack of confidence. And all of these things are not helpful, right? Has anybody seen something on there that they can identify with? Yeah, getting nods. And think about it, folks. I'm not saying, or I'm not alluding to the fact of like, just stop it, because it's not easy. It's easier said than done. But what I am trying to do here, or what I'd like to do, is bring awareness to this. And where there's awareness, then we've got a better chance of not doing these things. So let's take a look at the harder behaviors. I have to move my gallery out of the way here. Harder behaviors is also, there's also a level of insecurity in harder behaviors as well. There's also a level of discomfort, but we come at it differently, right? We might talk without listening. we're talking at the person, we're talking over the person. That could be because of nerves, right? We're talking at them, we're not giving them any chance. I'm not giving them any opportunity to come in here, I'm just going to blurt, right? We give them facts without empathy or compassion. We call that brutal honesty. And over the years, I've learned to say brutal doesn't have a place in life. It really, I used to wear a badge of honor. Well, I'm just direct and I just say it like it is. Well, I didn't have a lot of good luck with that because all I was doing was shutting people down. So brutal honesty, delivering information when the receiver's not expecting it, that would be lacking a sense of awareness, perhaps, not being able to read a room. Reacting defensively when we feel challenged, right? We're telling somebody something and then they come back and say something to us. And now all of a sudden we're in the defense. And that is normal behavior. It's human behavior. We're wired to protect ourselves when we feel threatened. However, just because it's default behavior doesn't mean we should use it, right? We might feel it, but we should never behave on it. So these are all part of harder behaviors. We focus on what we need to say, on what we want to hear, and we're not even, that person's not even in the room. We're just getting this stuff out, right? We're just blurting. And failure to ask questions. So if I'm giving you feedback, then I should be prepared to take feedback from you, right? I should be prepared to take feedback back. And there's nothing nicer and more professional than when we give feedback to somebody and we're finished, then we can say something along the lines of, how did that land for you? How did that land for you? Do you want to add anything to that? Would you like to say so? And be prepared to get feedback back. But hard behavior, in a lot of cases, doesn't allow for that. Both of these behaviors lack vulnerability. Both of these behaviors erode trust. Both of these behaviors do not include connection. And at the end of the day, when interacting in interpersonal relationships with other human beings, connection is everything. And we're not making connection when we do this, right? So these are some of the traps that we tend to fall into. If you look to the left over here, they're more avoidant behaviors. And over to the right, even though they're more controlling, I would say there's still avoidant behaviors because we're avoiding that feedback. Any questions, any comments here?
Lorraine, there's a conversation in the chat that some people are feeling like it's easier to have these type of conversations in the personal life rather than work.
Okay. Why is that? Would somebody like to share with me why they think, and I've heard this before, by the way, some people have said it's easier to have it in the personal life than it is at work. Some people have actually said it's easier for them to have it at work than in the personal life. So is anybody willing to speak to that?
I'll say my opinion. I think it is easier. It is much easier for me in my personal life than my professional life. But I think that's because in my personal life, those people that I would be having these difficult conversations with are ones that are most of the time choosing to love me or respect me and be my friend or be in a relationship with me in some way. And work, none of us chose this, right? So I think it's like what the foundation is, where we're coming from.
Wow, that's nicely put, Kendall. Right. That's, you're not second guessing those people. You know, they love you. And that's beautiful. So, you're not as worried about the fallout is what I'm getting because you know who they are. Yeah. And so I think we have a lot more confidence at home. But then there are those individuals, if I can add to that, thank you for coming forward, that was great, who go into work and they are, on at work all the time because when they go home, they don't have a home life where they feel they can speak up as much. So it's interesting. And yes, it's absolutely it exists, right? But, we can't, this is not in here, but it's one of my favorite sayings. We can't speak up when we're dead. It's very basic, but we have, we have to say what needs to be said. And it's how we say it. It's so important to reveal rather than withhold. If it needs to be said, and here's something else, I don't want to be on a soapbox here, but I'm going to assume, and it's hard, it's going to be hard for me to ask you this right now, but most of you are leaders in one aspect or another, and we owe that to our employees. We owe it, not just to our employees, we owe it to our children, but we owe it to our employees to speak up. And it's scary. Let's name that, right? It can be scary. However, sometimes we have to travel with fear. We've taken on that responsibility. Yeah. And if any of these traits speak to you, they're just traits. They don't identify you. So just know that they don't identify you. And there's so many tools that we can use to make it easier not to fall into these traps. Yeah. I'm moving on. Anybody have any comments, any feedback? Any feedback? All right. So we talked about what trap. So anybody in particular wants to come off, would like to come off mute and let me know what trap you tend to fall in mostly and why. What trap you tend to fall in mostly and why you think that's the case. Any brave souls out there?
I feel like I do the avoidance a lot.
Okay, all right.
I just, like I actually was gonna have a conversation with my cleaning lady this morning, and I had all my courage like ready to go. And then I totally sugarcoated it and drove to work going, oh yeah.
Oh, see.
I didn't do it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I didn't want to hurt her feelings, I guess.
There we go. You didn't want to hurt her feelings. And we take feelings and we take the relationship in as in front of the task, which is a good thing, I guess, to a point. But it's all about balance, isn't it? It's all about balance. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I want you to think to yourself, so the cleaning lady still doesn't know. And in addition to the cleaning lady not knowing what it was you were going to tell her, you're beating yourself up in addition for not telling her. So it's a double whammy, right? Yeah. And that's what we do. All right. So what I want you to do, and what's your name? It's coming up as TBLUS. Can I ask you?
It's Tuesday.
My
first name is Tuesday. Yeah, okay, like the day, sort of.
Yeah, okay, so Tuesday. Thank you for that, Tuesday. And maybe this is what you want to write about well, first of all, what you want to write about next, because next I'm going to ask you to do an activity. And again, I'm only going to give you 2 minutes in which to do it, but I don't know. I would make a big fat assumption that we all need to have that conversation. There's somebody out there that we're not having that conversation with because it's challenging. Whether it's somebody at work, whether it's a direct report, your boss, a peer. If you can't think of anybody in the workplace, which I'd rather you do, I want you to think of a conversation nonetheless. So if it's your teenagers, your best friend, your spouse, think of that conversation that you haven't had yet because it might be challenging. And I want you just to bring it to life by thinking about it and writing something down. Be extremely honest with yourself. You don't have to share this. I'm not going to ask you what you wrote or who it is. So I'm going to give you 90 seconds. How's that? 90 seconds to just think of this person and just write the highlights down. All right, 90 seconds starting from now. 30 seconds left. And pause for me. All right, how did that feel?
I still don't want to have that conversation.
You still don't want to have that conversation. Thank you.
But I did write it down. Yeah.
Okay. And you know when you were writing it down, were you feeling anything?
I was nervous just writing it down.
That's what
like it brought up all the anxiety of the attempts to have the conversation.
Yeah. So that's where
Thank you, Tuesday.
What was that? Was that something in the chat?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, I feel it right in my gut sometimes. Like, just writing stuff down, you can feel it right in the gut area. I don't want to put you on the spot, Angela, but I want to ask you, not the conversation, not the person, but what can you actually put your finger on that's making you feel that way? Why is it challenging?
Because it's not a conversation I want to have, and it's a conversation that I wish could go differently, and I'm rooting for the person. Okay. But I don't know what else to do to help.
Okay. Can I challenge you a little bit? Not on speaking to the person, but asking you a couple of questions. Would you mind?
Sure.
Have you spoken to the person before?
Yes.
About the subject? Okay. All right.
Yes. Danced around it.
You've danced. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of dancing.
Okay. A lot of dancing. All right. Okay. It's tough, right? It is. There's no doubt about it that it is, it's tough, but we really, have to sit with this and ask ourselves, because in Angela's case, I don't know if it's a friend or a colleague, but if it's somebody who works for us, right, then it becomes our responsibility to have that conversation, right? If it's somebody who works for us, and it might not be, but if it's a blind spot, if we think that we can help that person by being vocal and having that conversation, then we have, I would say, a responsibility to do so. And using courage to go in with our fear. Here's some of the reasons why we might find it hard. We lack clarity, right? It might not be as clear. What we want to say, what's actually happening, might not be very, very clear. And clarity is everything. We want to make sure that we have clear roles. We want to make sure that before we go in and we have these hard conversations, that we're clear about what it is we want to say. We might not always say it because our nerves might take over, our anxiety, but at least we're clear. Self-doubt or lack of confidence. The opposite of confidence is doubt. Yeah. And when we doubt ourselves too much, we freeze. And then we stay stuck. So think about that. Excessive worry about the other person's feelings. And I think that's what Tuesday said earlier on. We worry about the other person's feelings, and that's human. But we, again, weighing up the pros and cons. Do we still need to have this conversation? What's more important? Concern about how we'll be viewed or judged afterwards. Maybe they're not going to like me afterwards. Maybe it's not going to go over the way I thought it would go over. Maybe they're going to think I'm a bit of a monster for saying what I'm saying. We build it up, and I think we tend to make it bigger. Ego. We can come in with our ego because we're nervous, so we armor up. Or the person that we're getting ready to talk to, in a lot of cases, is going to armor up. And we may have had that conversation before, and they may have armored up, and we have a hard time getting through to them. So these are all reasons why having these hard conversations feel hard. Here's a big one that I think is overlooked a lot, and that is how you were raised, your upbringing. It's huge. Some of us were not raised to speak up. It could be cultural, it could be household. We just didn't speak up. You didn't speak up, right? So what are we saying here? If that's the case, I have friends who will say to me all the time, Lorraine, I didn't speak up as a kid. I wasn't allowed. There was 11 of us. And I get that. I recognize it. So what I want to really emphasize here is, if that's the case and it's conditioning, it is absolutely not impossible. Might be a little bit harder, but it's not impossible. We have to intentionally practice speaking up and maybe reframing it and telling ourselves that we're doing the other person. It's a gift we're giving the other person when we speak up, right? If it's coming from here, if it's coming from a good place, then it's a gift. All right, so these are reasons why it might feel hard. And now we're going to jump into empathy and how we can use empathy to help us have these conversations. Why empathy is important and how we can use it. Before we jump in, any questions, any comments? Got a really quiet crew here today. Are we good? Can you give me a thumbs up if everything's good? All right, thank you. Empathy. So I'll ask you straight off the top, is there anybody on this call that was raised believing that empathy is woo-woo, fuzzy, airy-fairy, soft? I was. Anybody else? Oh, empathy. There's that word again, that empathy. Yeah, whatever, right? So a lot of us were raised to believe it's soft and it's airy-fairy and whatever word you can come up with. But if we were raised that way, or if we believe that, I will challenge you and challenge myself, because I was raised to believe that we have the definition wrong. Because empathy is an absolute human element. It's an element in life that we absolutely should use more of. And we'll talk about it and see why. And I'd love to hear from you. I'd love you to maybe give me some examples as we go into this. Empathy is connection, right? If we're going to have a difficult conversation, the first thing we need to do is make a connection. We need to have a bridge. We've got to get over this bridge. So we have to create the bridge in order to get over it. And that's what empathy does. It allows us to connect with others. Yeah. So here are some examples. Empathy, when done right, leaves the other person feeling felt. I think that might be a Brene Brownism. I'm not sure. But what we mean there is when you feel felt by somebody, when you feel seen, when you're talking to somebody and you really feel like they see you, they get you, right? You matter. That's empathy. And it's huge, right? Making space for the other person's emotions without judging them or dismissing them. And it means listening to the other person's truth, even if what they're telling you has never happened to you before and it feels just so out there, believing it anyway and letting them know, yeah, okay, I can see that, I believe that. So I want to give you a quick story because it's something that happened really recently. In fact, it was 2 weeks today that this happened to me. It was on a Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. It was on the 13th of May. I was driving over to the other coast. I was driving over to Vero Beach, and 3-hour drive. For those of you who are not from Florida, it's a 3-hour drive on the East Coast from where I live. I'm in Sarasota, by the way. And my car's 16 months old. I bought a brand new Kia Sportage 16 months ago, 2025, and I'm driving over there and everything's going great. And there's a little piece of information I need to tell you before I tell you what happened when I got there. My car was up for its routine maintenance the day before on the Tuesday. Routine maintenance, right? Take it in, they check all your fluids, they change your oil. So I thought, well, that's good. Driving 3 hours, have this routine check. Everything's good. That went well. driving over, get to Vero Beach and have lunch with a dear friend, get back in the car, getting ready to drive back, and the oil light goes on. Ding, 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 oil light. So I think, oh my goodness, there's an oil light. And then within, I swear, it wasn't even 2 minutes, the car just seizes up, just like stops. I get the dashboard, it's flashing saying hybrid motor shutting down, and I'm stuck on the side of a road. So anyway, without going into great detail, all the calls were made. I called my husband and I told him what happened. He called Kia here. I called a towing service, got my car towed over to Kia dealership in Vero Beach. They take it, they put it up on the lift, and they say your engine's blown. Okay, so then I get I'm giving you the short version. So I get to Enterprise, I rent a car, I drive back here. So I go to bed, I'm sick, right? The engine's blown. I loved my car, just a Kia Sportage, but I absolutely loved it. Went to bed, felt sick as whatever. It was 10 o'clock at night. Next morning is where it got me. I didn't want to go into the dealership. Why? Because most people don't like dealerships. I don't like dealerships. But I'd already done my homework, got up really early, made a list, checked it twice, went to the dealership, and the guy at the dealership, his name was Billy Cunningham, he goes, okay, give me the key to the Enterprise, here's the key to the loaner, we'll call you when we put a new engine in it. And I go, a new engine? And he said, yeah, we'll just drop a new engine in. So I started asking questions. It's 16 months old. So I started asking questions about the engine, and it turns out that they're going to put what he called a remand engine. I don't know what that means, right? Exactly. I'm getting this. Remand. Are you kidding me? Well, that's what we do. It's under warranty. So I'm sitting there, and you can imagine he's just talking at me. You know, he's using these hard skills. That's what we do. It's under warranty. But prior to me going in that morning, I'd already made an appointment with the GM. So as Billy and I are going back and forth, and I'm trying to keep my composure by doing box breaths, the GM walks in. And he walks in the door, in this little office, all glass, you know, the way they have in these dealerships. And he looks at me and he says, Lorraine Williams? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry of what happened to you. And he said, mistakes happen, but I am so sorry that they happened to you. It was our mistake. By the way, guys, the actual plug from the oil plug wasn't even in there. So it must have been kind of haphazardly put in, and it dropped out halfway. So he said, it was our issue. I mean, can you imagine? It's a dealership and they're actually saying it's their issue. So I'm sitting there in disbelief. He said, and we want to make it right, whatever it takes within reason. So what I'd like to do for you is offer you exactly what you paid for that car 16 months ago. And we'll work the numbers and we'll see what we come up with and have you drive out of here in a brand new 2026. And I couldn't talk, not because of a brand new 2026, because I loved my car, but I had to compose myself because I wanted to cry, because I felt seen. He saw me and I mattered, and what a feeling that was. And I just said, thank you so much. We worked it out. I got a new car. That doesn't matter. But I gave him a stellar Google review because I was seen. He touched me because he saw me. That's empathy, right? So yeah, and that just happened. So anyway, that's my story on empathy. And I want to give you a couple of other perspectives on what empathy can look like, because it's such a strong human element. I was going to ask, does anybody on here like to cook? Any, okay, Raja and Natalie, anybody else likes to cook? I've got a thumbs up from Christine. Well, I want one of you to please, I want to kind of put you on the spot, and I want to ask you, what ingredient is it that you really cannot leave out of cooking in order to draw the flavor out? What is an important ingredient when you're cooking that you have to put in to draw the flavors out? No? Some people would say salt. Salt is an important ingredient in cooking. They say if you don't put salt in, the flavors don't kind of come out. Well, empathy is the salt to your cooking. It's what brings the human element out in people. It's a required seasoning that we have to use. So we're going to take a look at a couple of examples. Here's example 1. Well, it's example 2 because I just gave you an example. Imagine this is you. A colleague has just shared with you in your workplace that they're feeling overwhelmed after a personal family loss. So I want you to think about this. You're in your office. It's people who you work with, and somebody has just lost a member of their family. And they come to you and they say, I feel terribly overwhelmed, right? You can imagine. And this is what empathy might look like. Wow. I can hear how heavy this is for you. It sounds like you're really carrying a lot more than people realize. So it only makes sense that you're exhausted. Wow. I mean, you don't need to have it all figured out right now. I've got you. We've got you here. You're going to be, you don't have to have it all figured out. And I'm really glad you said something. That's empathy. Can you see that? You're seeing the person. You're saying to them, I can see how heavy, I can hear it. I see you, I feel you, you matter, is what you're saying there. Why is it empathy? It names the emotion without trying to fix it. You're not trying to fix people. It normalizes the response without minimizing the pain. Wow, this has got to be really hard for you. Yeah? And then it creates space so the person feels seen and ultimately safe. Maybe they were worried about the job, but you've just said to them, you don't have to have it all figured out right now. Thank you so much for telling me. That's empathy. You're tuning in, right? You're tuning in on the emotion that they're feeling. You're not trying to make light of it. You're not judging it. You're not dismissing it. You are tuning in. The message, presence, not problem solving. Can you see that? I see you. People want to be seen. They want to feel felt. All right, let's take a look at another example. A little bit different. I just want to give you different ideas as to what empathy might look like. You're in your office. There's a decision that has to be made. You may have 6 direct reports and a peer, and the decision is a big one. So you're a democratic leader. So you sit around the table with your people and you talk it through and you come up with a decision. And you're happy with the decision, and most of your people are, excuse me. But as the age-old saying goes, we can't please all of the people all of the time. And there's one person here who strongly disagrees. They are not happy, right? They are very against, they're so against the decision that was made. So think about that. This is what empathy might look like. You know, John, I've thought long and I've thought hard about this decision, given it a lot of thought, and I'm standing by it. But I also want to acknowledge how frustrating that it's got to feel from your perspective based on what you were expecting. So let's talk more about your concerns as we move forward, and we can see what we can do, what's possible moving forward. Can you see empathy there? Right? You're not agreeing. You don't have to agree. Empathy is not agreement. Empathy is not alignment. Empathy is seeing, feeling, letting that person know, I see you. So why is this empathy? Well, it doesn't agree with the position. But this is the part that I think is really important. It acknowledges the internal logic of the other person. I can see where you are coming from. I've looked at it from your perspective, right? And it separates understanding from alignment. So again, the message, empathy doesn't require shared conclusions. It requires clarity, honest curiosity, and what I dropped off there in error, compassion. Compassion. And empathy in itself is compassion. Any questions? No? Any ahas? Okay. All right. So this is what empathy isn't. Feeling sorry for. People don't want to be felt sorry for. When that guy came into me, when the GM came into me, he wasn't feeling sorry for me. He was seeing me, but he wasn't feeling sorry for me. Judging, right? Imagine if that last example we just looked at, John, who doesn't agree. Imagine if we said, you know what, John, I'm so disappointed in you. There was 5 of us around that table and you go off on your own all the time. That's judging, right? Or imagine the same person saying to that person, okay, John, decision made, smack the table, move on, get over it, mate, we're moving on. Yeah, it's dismissing, right? That's not empathy. Or being disappointed in him because he came up with something that was so different to everybody else. That's not empathy. Minimizing or avoiding, comparing or competing, and it's certainly not advice giving or trying to solve somebody's problem. They are what we would call empathy misses. So what I'd like you to do right now is go back to that challenging conversation, the one that Angela told us about and the one that Tuesday didn't have this morning. That's okay, right? That's why we're here. And if you can go back to that conversation and just look at it, and if you wouldn't mind trying to see it now from the lens, wearing the lens of empathy, maybe, how easy or difficult will it be for you to generate empathy for this person before and during the conversation? Think of it through the lens of empathy. And I want to give you, how about I give you 60 seconds I'll give you 75. I'll give you 75 seconds just to think about that and see if anything has shifted at all. Yeah? All right. 75 seconds. And we're on the clock. Okay, 20 more seconds. And let's pause if you don't mind. And I'd love somebody to be brave enough to come off. If you've had a shift thinking about the empathy aspect of it, I would love you to come off pause, off mute, and share it with us. Any shifts? Okay.
Rain, I'll share
yes,
for me.
Please.
I'll share for me. I really liked your examples, and in just pausing and thinking about the conversation, the shift for me was I was really dug into the outcome of the conversation, and this is what I want to happen, and this is what I'm going to say, and this is, really into the conversation. And the shift around empathy made me less attached to that and more curious and I'm more curious, and I have a lot of questions now, and I'm not so tied to whatever outcome I had.
Wow, that's interesting. That's really, really interesting. So it's kind of like opened your periphery, the horizon a little bit more. Wow, that's great. Thanks, Nat. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else? Stacy, did you come off mute or were you just off mute?
Yeah, I came off mute. From that first example, where immediately I was like, oh, I need to solve this. And maybe that's my HR background, like coming out, but to just slow down and really hear the person first. And yeah, I would think that would be important for me to do. I always thought I was really good at it, but through this exercise, it's like, yeah, you can always strengthen those muscles and repeat those actions that you don't even realize that you're doing, and to step back and look at it and go, okay, maybe I should, think about this from this lens instead, because maybe they don't want to have you solve it. Maybe they just want you to hear it, and to, they're working it out in their own mind, in their own head, and that's why they're coming to you with something.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that kind of speaks to what Natalie said as well. And I only bring that up because I think it's kind of, it can be common, right? That we want to fix it. We're going in there with this result in mind. And if we can kind of let that weight go and just have the conversation, and especially I tell myself all the time, if it's coming from a good place, it's not about winning or losing, right or wrong. It's coming from the right place, right? It's coming, whatever that conversation is, it's coming from here. It's heartfelt, and lighten it up. It's easier said than done, of course, but to just feel a little bit lighter about it. Yeah, thank you for coming forward and sharing that, Stacey. I appreciate it. Anybody else? All right. Well, I'm hoping that empathy has added a skill, or it's sharpened that skill for you. I'm sure we all showed empathy beforehand. I have no doubt, but hopefully it's sharpened that skill for you. I do have one last, with 6 seconds away from, we're 5 minutes after the hour here. I would like to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, just one last favor, and that would be, I think Natalie has actually put a eval in. There's a link in the chat for an evaluation. I think it's probably 4-5 questions. It won't take you a minute, and if you wouldn't mind doing that for me right now, that would be wonderful. And I'm asking you to do 2 things here, which is very confusing. First and foremost, if you wouldn't mind doing that, I would really appreciate it. The only way we get better is to get your feedback. And I'm so glad you joined us today. I, for one, had a great time. I hope you learned a lot. If you can go into the eval, let us know what you liked, what you'd like us to change. And before you jump off this call today, I would love you to go into the chat as well. I'm asking for a lot today. And type in your one big thing. What was the one big thing that really jumped out at you during this exercise that you can possibly leave here and it will bring value to you immediately? Yeah? So they're my 2 asks, the eval and your one big thing. And of course, you're more than welcome to come off mute. And I am going to stop sharing here. There we go. No more slides. I think we lost a few people as well. Maybe they had to drop off on the hour. Beautiful. I'm reading. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, somebody said they had to jump off. That was Salvo. So using empathy to gain courage to have the conversation. I love it. I am not afraid to have it very soon. Okay, that's Tuesday. Yay. Yay. Natalie, increase in listening means increase in learning. Yeah, I love it. Empathy, but also confident in your decisions, Radha. Yes. Stacy says she'll leave here remembering to pause and listen, not trying to solve the issue right away. And always assume positive intent. I love that. Always assume positive intent. Tuesday, you're very welcome. Radha, you're very welcome. And don't plan the full conversation when prepping. Just plan the beginning and let it progress naturally. I love that, Trish. Yeah, I think we just get so caught up and tighten up and yeah. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on this call today. I don't think I knew anybody on this call except Nat. So it was lovely meeting everybody. And yeah, thank you for your time. I've taken you over a little bit and